Time for a quick break here on NonStop Local at 5. Still to come, take a look at these signs. Spokane has been closed for about 5 weeks now. Once they're in, they will jump start the car, or they'll use a screwdriver, stick it in the ignition, and turn it. But we're here at 10th and Sherman outside the apparent home of the suspect. It's free and anyone is welcome. And Tim, I actually was just telling you, I've done one of these cold plunges before, but I did mine in Florida when it was about 80 degrees outside. This is a little bit different here in the inland Northwest.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. But after the events of yesterday, they're being more diligent about making sure they come over here and pick out a glove. This hill over here, you can see those dark black plumes of smoke before you come out to spend a day skiing. Reporting on Mount Spokane, I'm Steffi Roche. Whether you're flying or driving, the weather is always a big concern. Good evening, I'm Steffi Roche. It's a common sight, and now it's a broken slide at one Walla Walla Park. It's raising concern. For many drivers here in Washington, every time they pull up to the pump, they have to think about the cost of living in the Northwest. So, Guy, everyone wants to know, I think we've both been singing White Christmas all morning. Are we anticipating a White Christmas this year after the Barbie movie?
Hey, Barbie, right?
I can. The snow is definitely packed and powdery, as you can see, and that's just the accumulation level here on the sidewalk. The smoke, it's dying down just a bit. When we first got out here this afternoon, there were plumes of smoke all over the place. They have a tire slasher on their hands. Officers responded to 20 reports of tires slashed yesterday. Good evening and happy Thanksgiving. I'm Steffi Roche with this NonStop Local update. It's definitely a hot one today, and we aren't the only ones here at Comstock Park's pool. You can see the pool is packed with people, families, kids. You're going to need Eclipse glasses just like these. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, you look really cool wearing them, just like I do right now, probably. The man says that he was parked in this lot at Terrace View Park on August 14th when the sergeant approached his vehicle. And we do want to warn our viewers that the body cam footage is violent and disturbing, and so it might be hard to watch.
Get on the ground! You're under arrest. Get on the ground!
This was the climax of a tense exchange between the sergeant and the man.
How you doing? Good. Being audio and video recorded. It's a crime to be in the park after hours. This is considered a park. So.
All right, I'll go find another place to watch a movie.
The attorneys for the man say it started when their client stopped to rest in Terrace View Park in Spokane Valley.
He was tired and wanted to just rest a little bit before he continued home to Colfax.
You got your ID on you real quick?
No, I don't.
You're not shutting the door. You're not free to leave.
Yeah, I am.
You're not.
Why are you acting like that?
Because you're kind of being rude.
I'm being rude?
Yes.
And how is that?
There was a bit of back and forth.
Putting your shoes on for you. You're not going anywhere.
And why is that, sir?
Why? Because you're refusing to tell me who you are, and you're probably going to end up going to jail.
Oh, for not giving you my name?
Yep.
Because this is an ongoing investigation, Spokane County sheriffs are not releasing the name of the sergeant, but attorneys representing the man, Timothy Note and Josh Maurer, state it was Sergeant Clay Hilton.
Okay, come here. I can't.
Note says the injuries included 8 broken ribs, a punctured lung, some lip disfiguration, as well as mental trauma from the beating.
Okay.
Their client was ultimately arrested for being in a park after hours and charged with resisting and obstructing. The attorneys claim the man was taken to the Spokane County Jail, but he was not allowed in because of how serious his injuries were.
That alone should have given somebody some concern about his injuries. But nobody looked into this case. Nobody launched an investigation. It wasn't until Tim brought it to the prosecutor's office that we were informed that anything's been done.
Why did this happen?
Friday, the Spokane County Sheriff's Office released a statement confirming the sergeant was placed on administrative leave September 30th, after the sheriff was notified about the incident by the county prosecutor's office the day before on September 29th. In a statement sent to NonStop Local, Sheriff Knowles stated, quote, Allegations of misconduct by law enforcement are very concerning to our community and myself. That is why I immediately asked the Spokane Police Department to investigate the actions of the sergeant independently. I trust the Spokane Police Department to conduct a thorough, complete, and unbiased investigation into the sergeant's actions and this incident. End quote. The Sheriff's Office plans to conduct an internal investigation after the completion of the independent investigation. Reporting live in Spokane Valley, I'm Steffi Roche, NonStop Local. Well, this property was the first victim of the Gray Fire, but this lot has a much deeper history with ties to cinema, but also the Cold War. Back on August 18th, we weren't sure what was burning, but we could see that whatever it was going quickly. Now, close to a month later.
That is where my dad made a haunted house, through there with tires and chains.
Tommy Wheeler lived on Nike Hill for the majority of her childhood, but the family has owned the property since 1979 when her late father purchased the abandoned lot and wanted to make this a home.
So the home was built in the barracks right over there, one long hallway, all the way back, and then this was the shop that my dad worked in.
Nike Hill dates back to the Cold War era when it was used as a communication center. These charred buildings were military barracks. During the Cold War, Washington State became an important military defensive and deterrence location. Around the state and Spokane were military basing that included radars, long-range bombers, and Nike missiles. When the Wheelers bought the lot, they created a business there called Vintage Sales. Also, an episode of the sci-fi series Z Nation was filmed on the property.
It's fun to say that your house was in a sci-fi episode.
The day the Gray Fire began, Tommy received calls from friends regarding the property and the family's safety.
So I called the crew that I have working up here for security and cleanup, because we were trying to clean up the yard before the fire. And he said that the fire had hit the cars and that they had escaped. One of our security guys' houses did not make it.
She says approximately 80% of the structures on the property were destroyed by the fire. The next steps for Tommy and her family are to clean up the damage, reflect on the land's memories, and to show support for the Medical Lake community.
When you watch your dad's legacy and the memories go up in flames, it is so hard. But then when you watch your town go up in flames after it, you realize it's just stuff. That's all it is. It's just stuff.
While so much was burned and lost, the memories here and Wheeler's father's legacy will never be forgotten. Reporting in Medical Lake, I'm Steffi Roche, NonStop Local. I was able to confirm that 14 dogs were euthanized Wednesday morning. And you might remember my reporting regarding the behavioral assessments at Scraps. And I've been covering the concerns over Scraps practices for over a month. But now with this new development, this story is far from being over. On Wednesday morning, I received a text from Kevin Van Hook, a former Scraps employee who was fired months ago after an argument regarding the behavioral assessments with Scraps director Jesse Ferrari.
I learned at about 11 a.m. that Scraps senior management had executed a mass execution.
Van Hook says a current employee at Scraps told him about it. Van Hook claims the current staff member and other employees found out about the euthanizations after they'd already been done. Van Hook and others do not believe these dogs are a danger to society, but that the assessments they underwent were stacked against the dogs.
As we had predicted, these dogs would fail. Every single one of them so far has failed. They've executed them.
Why do you use the word execute?
Euthanasia means good death, and in some cases that is correct. When an animal is suffering, to end that suffering, when it's irreversible, you would use euthanasia. These dogs did not get a euthanasia. They were executed.
The deaths of these 14 dogs comes the same month Spokane City Council members Michael Cathcart and Karen Stratton released a statement regarding the treatment of animals at Scraps. The city contracts with Scraps for animal services, and both council members have been working on an ordinance to make it more difficult to euthanize animals.
And it feels almost like retribution for the ordinance that we put out a week ago.
That ordinance would ensure that animals at Scraps are euthanized only when necessary, but it hasn't passed yet, hasn't even been voted on, which is why City Council member Cathcart says he was surprised to hear that Scraps had taken the steps it did. He says he's disturbed by a number of issues, one of them being what he calls a total lack of transparency from Scraps about their plans.
I learned it from a text message from you that the Scraps organization made the decision to euthanize 14 dogs, and it's frankly, it's pretty egregious.
I also reached out to Spokane County for their side of the story and talked with Patrick Bell, the county's communications director.
The assessment is not the tool that ultimately decides euthanasia. That's humane euthanasia is at the discretion of our director, and it's only ever employed as a last resort. I just want to be clear, Scraps does not use euthanasia or euthanize animals due to capacity issues. The dogs that were euthanized, that were part of that 14, it was only because they were an untreatable threat and thus a public safety risk.
Bell says many of the dogs assessed had histories of dangerous bites and aggressive tendencies. Spokane County published a statement on their website that the public can view regarding the behavioral assessments. It includes 16 files regarding 16 dogs, but it's unclear if these were the dogs euthanized. Patrick Bell wasn't even sure.
There was no proactive statement or proactive effort by Scraps to let the public know that this decision was made, and here's why. In fact, if you read those behavioral assessments, it really doesn't even give you a clear picture as to which animals were actually euthanized.
Spokane City Council issued a statement Wednesday calling on Scraps to attend their meeting on Monday to answer their questions.
Well, we appreciate the invitation. The shelter operations and management is really dedicated to the facility here. We think it would be even more advantageous if the City Council were to come to Scraps to sit down with us.
I feel like I have lost all trust in their leadership at Scraps.
The first reading of the ordinance was supposed to be in a few weeks, but now, with this new development, the City Council will be voting on it on Monday. Reporting in Spokane Valley, I'm Steffi Roche, NonStop Local.